Welcome to another Sounds of ERA podcast. My name is Edward Johnson, a.k.a. Eddie, and I'm the president of InfoEd International. I'm here today with Hilda Alajajian. She is from the University of Vermont, and she is a grants resources specialist. And she's been there for about 11 years. Hello, Hilda.
Hi, Eddie. Good to talk with you today.
How are you marketed on your campus? How do people know to go find Hilda? Do you work on their behalf, or do you just basically have an open door, or do you work on their behalf, in some cases unbeknownst to them? How do you get your traffic, if you will?
As far as students go, that's a good question. I don't know how they started coming to my door. I do know that some of the professors who are very mentor-oriented to their students, they really want to get them involved and have a real interest in nurturing their students' research skills. They mention my name, and they also invite me to come address their classes. And so, like I said earlier, even though some of these students may not be needing the databases immediately for where they're at now, the professors want them to start getting used to some of the tools that are necessary to be successful in the academic profession.
You had mentioned a lot of the use of the filters. What kind of filters might you use for a student or a grad student or postdoc? Because their funding that they're eligible for is going to be considerably different than a tenured faculty, and also their CVs are generally not going to be anywhere near as robust. So if a student shows up and they're looking for some money, and maybe a physical sciences arena, they want to build a robot or something. What would you filter on? What do you do to differentiate them and find money that might be more targeted to them? Because I know in some cases with the federal grants, they don't really discriminate. They say, anybody can go after these things. But the reality is, if you don't have a monstrous CV or a career that can support that you're an expert, you're probably not going to get that award. Plus, they're very competitive. But as a student, what would you do? How would you find them money, knowing that there are things that are maybe targeted to them or more practical for them to reach out for?
Well, I think the biggest filter, obviously, is the filter for applicant type, which is student or grad student, if the database has that, and then the big ones do. And that narrows it down immediately. And, of course, their area of interest, I have noticed in using the databases through the years that they need to filter on broad keyword terms. They don't really need to get into the specific narrower keywords, because a lot of the opportunities out there are, well, I guess I'm thinking more in terms of fellowships for either part or all of their education versus the smaller pots of money that might fund a student's project or part of it. I think probably the federal government is one of the biggest funders for a student's education. So if they're looking for funds to support their education, then federal is the way to go. If they're looking for those smaller pots of money that might help them through the summer or might give them an opportunity to travel to another place in the world so they can do some field work, they're probably going to find those from smaller foundations and so forth. But I think as far as your question goes, what they would filter on is the applicant type and, of course, their broad area or discipline that they're looking for funding in.
Do you find that you're able to leverage some of the, I'm going to say applicant type again, but things like some of the characteristics like minorities, women, those kinds of things? There's other programs that have money that's kind of targeted to those people as well.
That's true. I don't think of those so often, but what you say is very true. There are opportunities that are geared for just women and also minorities, which is a broad category, which could include anything from ethnicity to socioeconomic to whether or not you're first generation or not as far as going to college. If you fit any of those categories, certainly that would be an advantage too, because that's a narrow focus that not everybody will fit into. And if you happen to be one of those people, then you have a head start there, so to speak, for funding anyway.
This has been fantastic, Hilda. I hope you're willing to do another one of these if time permits, or there's things that are topical. So thanks again. This is fantastic.
All right, Eddie. Thanks for asking.